Good day, everybody. This is Margie here once again from Nature Health. And I am delighted to introduce my next guest in this series of interviews on taking charge of your health naturally. And as most of you know, I'm working with women over 40. And my beautiful guest today is Clarissa, and she is the menopause queen. So Clarissa Kristjansson and I have known each other for just a very short while on LinkedIn. And when I met her, I thought, oh my word, she is such a wealth of information. We really do need to share this information to the much wider market. So this is why she's on as a guest today. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for accepting my invitation.
Oh, I'm so delighted, Margie, to be here and to be able to talk to your audience about menopause and natural health.
Wonderful. So just a little bit of background. So she's not only recognized as an international midlife and menopause coach, she's a renowned author, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her book a little bit later on, and it's Thriving Through Menopause. I think that's absolutely a fabulous title. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. She has 7 years experience in working with neuroscience, mindfulness, compassion and health coaching, helping women overcome and work through the issues that come with menopause, whether they're working or they're not working, whether they have a family or they don't. Most women have some issues they need to deal with at this time. So Clarissa, thank you once again. And I wonder, perhaps we should start right at the beginning. What is menopause?
Well, that is an excellent question that's probably confusing lots of your listeners. I think the first thing to recognize is that menopause, technically, let's get the real definition, is the day 12 months after you've had your last period. So most people think it's the whole thing, but it's not. We use that word very broadly. The reality is what women are going through is something called perimenopause. And that's when your hormones are fluctuating and declining. And that's when you feel all those experiences of hot flashes, weight gain, as we go through this sort of time of life, which can last for anywhere between 3 years and, unfortunately for some women, 15.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is probably what we're saying. Most of women who are somewhere near the beginning are going, oh, please, no, not 15. But, most of women, it's around sort of 5 to 6 years. So that is the perimenopause. Then you have this day called menopause. And after that, you're a postmenopausal woman. You will still have some hormones declining, but you are technically then not an ovulating woman, and you're in a very different phase of your life.
Thank you for that explanation. I don't think many women realize all of those details.
Yeah.
So why is hormone health not the same as hormone therapy?
That's an excellent question, actually, Margie, because I think hormone health is much bigger than hormone therapy. Hormone therapy is when we have hormones given to us via a clinician. Hormone health is all the things we do to look after our hormones and our bodies. So the health and the state of our hormones, which is more than obviously our sex hormones and is all of our hormones, is decided by our diet. So obviously the nutrition we have and whether we are nutrient deficient can have a big impact here. It's looked after by how well we manage our stress, because obviously stress is very hormone related, by our sleep, and even by things like exercise. And an important part of a woman's hormone health at her midlife is also the state of her thyroid, because a lot of women will have experiences they say are down to menopause that could be related to your thyroid. So hormone health is about keeping your hormones, in the balance that they're meant to be as much as is possible in our modern world, and setting us up for good long-term health. Hormone therapy is an intervention that may be necessary for some women. If you are someone who has had cancer, or you've had to have an emergency hysterectomy and you're 30 something, then clearly you do not want to go into menopause at 30. So you need support. And for some women, they can also be very, very ill, for they may have had a past medical history, or they become suicidal. They also need to be supported with hormone therapy. For some women, that then is a choice, but hormone therapy is not the same as your hormone health. It's only a small part of it.
Right. So having explained that, what are the key lifestyle steps? You mentioned a few of them that women can take to improve this step through menopause.
Oh, number one has to be your diet. It just has to be what you eat. Your nutritional status is so important. And we need to be considering what we're eating very carefully and very differently. First of all, we're likely to gain weight during this time of life, and it's a hormonal change. So estrogen changes your appetite. It can change your ability to manage how much fat you lay down. So a lot of us get that little, midriff in the middle there, that meno belly that doesn't want to change. And of course, we've got a slowing down in our metabolism to a certain extent, but we can do things to change that. But we have this little belly of fat, and unfortunately that goes around producing extra estrogen that our body doesn't really need. So the fact that it itself, those fat cells can do that, and that makes our symptoms worse because we're even more imbalanced. So keeping your weight down, and for that nutritionally, that means eating a lot less of our typical low fiber, high sugary foods. They don't serve anybody really, but we do need to be much more mindful of those. We need to be eating a plant-based diet, and probably people hear that over and over again, irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman, but a plant-based diet for these reasons, that they contain fiber. And fiber is important for making sure our bowels are working well and we're getting rid of excess estrogen from the body. We don't want that in our body because it will cause, as I said, hormone imbalances, but it can also recircle back into the lymphatic system and lay the foundations for hormonal-based cancers, which are things like breast cancer and others, and we don't want that. So a diet that is rich in fiber will help a lot. High-based plant-based diets also contain phytoestrogens, and phytoestrogens are naturally producing estrogens that are good for the body. So we want those to come into the body. We don't want excess, but we want them to come into the body and help us at a time when things are fluctuating and changing. There are lots of foods as well that are really good for us in terms of that estrogen balance, and they are things like soy. They are things like linseed and other types of similar seeds. They are extra good for us to have. They have certain types of chemicals in them that are really good for our bodies as we go through perimenopause. So your diet is the number one thing for you to look after.
How interesting. So I hear what you say about the plant-based diet, because that in itself helps lower the inflammation in the body, which at this time with the COVID around, we need to actually reduce that to the absolute minimum so that should we get it, our body can deal with it better. If our inflammation levels are high, we've done it, really.
We are absolutely. And I would be saying, in addition to a plant-based, make sure that you're getting omega-3, a right balance of omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. Part of that is, as you said, with inflammation. That will also help with inflammation in the gut. We know that if you're in perimenopause and your estrogen levels are declining, estrogen plays a role in inflammation control in the body. So a diet that is anti-inflammatory, if we like, will be supportive, because you won't have the same mechanisms to manage inflammation that you maybe once had.
Exactly. That's so interesting. Such a massive subject. The other question I wanted to ask you was, what would be your key tip for women to help them manage the menopause naturally?
The number one thing you can do is track your symptoms. You won't expect me to say that. It's not something you can take, but you should track your symptoms, because what you as a woman want to do is be an advocate for your own health. And if you don't know what's going on, how can you even begin to seek any help, even from a coach, or from, if you have to go to your clinician or anyone else? So tracking your symptoms is writing them down, looking at what's happening, and looking at whether there are things that happen through your day, your week, that you could manage. For example, and a good example is a hot flash. 80% of women have these things. And that you may notice, as many women do, that can be brought on by stress, by alcohol, or by certain foods, particularly maybe for some of us, spicy foods. Those are things that you as a woman can control. You have the ability to say, well, that usually brings that on. Okay, maybe I have to change that, drink or eat less of that. But if you don't know and you're just going to have all these hot flashes, then what are you going to do? So manage that by tracking. That's the number one thing you can do for yourself.
Well, I must say, this has been like opening a can of worms, all these exciting things that we can actually manage ourselves if we have all the information. So would you like to share with the audience perhaps just a little bit about your amazing book, which is a bestseller already?
It is. And my book's all about mindfulness and the menopause. So it's available on Amazon. It's actually under my previous name, Clarissa Hughes, just to make life difficult. But it is about mindfulness and the menopause. And it's about how we can approach this time of life more mindfully, more thoughtfully, and be supported by slowing down, by pacing our life, by managing a lot of stress, because obviously stress and the menopause don't go very well together, mainly because stress makes your symptoms look worse, and it looks like menopause, and it just dials up your symptoms, which no woman have. No.
Now, I remember when we initially spoke, you have a little gift for anybody who's on the Zoom call or who watches the podcast. How do they access that beautiful gift to tell them what in fact it is they're going to receive?
Well, on my website, I have 2 free resources. There is a mindfulness for menopause, which you can download and do some practices to get yourself started in that space. And I have a pretty comprehensive self-care guide, which I think every woman needs more self-care in their lives, because we're usually too busy and not number one on our list. And they can go over to my website, Clarissa Kristjansson, all one name, ClarissaKristjansson.com. And those are free to download and will come straight into your inbox.
Well, that is so generous. Thank you so much. I think it's a win-win for everybody here. So in closing, you spoke about the mindfulness and the self-care. What would be your top self-care tip in closing?
Give yourself at least 10 minutes every single day to just be quiet with yourself. Just have 10 minutes and just close the door. It doesn't matter what you do, those 10 minutes just to go, and decompress. Just tell your family, sorry, that's what I'm doing. And put yourself first that time.
You know what mine is?
Tell me.
Mine is to put do not disturb on the bathroom door.
Oh,
I light a candle, I put on some music, and I have the best bath ever. I just relax and I don't even look at the time. It's usually more than 10 minutes, but that is my very special time out where I don't want to be disturbed. I just want to be with myself. So
that is beautiful.
I bet that's in your book.
Oh, yes.
Taking a bath. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time, for your experience and your knowledge that you've shared with us. And I'm so pleased everybody now is able to access you very easily at ClarissaKristjansson.com. So thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me as your guest.